Hello and welcome back to Tungsten Tales. Today we're back with episode 3 of Ranked, where we'll be having a quick look at the 11 TV tournaments in the PDC calendar and ranking them all the way from God tier to the slightly rubbish tournaments that you don't particularly have that much opinion on. So without further ado, we will get into the video, and the first tournament to have a very quick look at is the Ladbrokes Masters. Obviously it's the first tournament on the calendar. The players get a bit of a break after the World Championship, and the first tournament back is the Masters in Milton Keynes. The top 16, longish format, first to 10 from the first round, up to 11 I believe in the semis and the final. It's a nice little taster. It's obviously the top 16, they've all been away and they've had a bit of time off after the World Championships. So it's good to ease back in with a 3-day tournament in Milton Keynes. And for me it's a good tournament. It's nothing special. Obviously the prize fund isn't anywhere near the likes of the World Matchplay or the World Championship, but for a first tournament of the year, get to see the top 16 on TV, decent long format as well. It's a good tournament. The second tournament on my list is the World Matchplay, now sponsored by Betfred of course. For many people classed as the second best tournament in the PDC, and it is by me as well. Obviously it's the top 32 in the world, it's long format, first to 10 in the first round, up to 16 obviously, and further possibly in the final, with it being no tie break trying to get too clear. We've had some spectacular matches at the Matchplay over the years. Obviously one of the more recent games would be the Joe Cullen Gary Anderson match, or even the final from that year against Mincer Sudovic. They're two that really stand out in my head, but there's so many you could pick, and obviously with it being at the Winter Gardens in Blackpool, it's probably, in my opinion, the best venue and the best darts atmosphere on the calendar. So for me, the World Matchplay is only going one place, and that is into God tier. It's a fantastic tournament. It's got the best players in the world, it's long format. The crowd is, for me, the best in the world. There's nowhere else it could be but God tier. The third tournament I've got on my list is one that divides opinion quite severely, I must say. It's the Unibet Premier League. Obviously it's 10 of the best players in the world, round robin league format, over 16 weeks, now taking you into likes of Berlin, Rotterdam, obviously all around the UK and Ireland as well. The biggest venues on the tour, up to sort of 15,000 and above sometimes in some of the venues that we now tour around in the Unibet Premier League. The standard of darts is superb. Obviously the lack of ranking points is an issue. Obviously they don't go towards the main order of merit, and that is a gripe for many people with the Premier League. It takes up so much time in the calendar, and yet there are no ranking points available. So if you balance that out, for me, with the spectacle you get, and the spectacle is superb. I've been lucky enough to attend plenty of Premier League events over the last 2 or 3 years. It is a good tournament. I don't think I can quite put it in the elite level because it doesn't go anywhere towards ranking, but it is considered part of the Triple Crown, of course, with the Matchplay and the World Championships. So for me, it's just a good tournament. I'm sure for many it's elite and possibly beyond. The next tournament on my list is the European Championships, one that comes a little later in the year as a little bit of a warm-up for the World Championships. It's a tournament obviously that's staged on ITV4, it's been staged in many countries over the years, likes of Belgium, the Netherlands and Germany in the last few years. If I'm perfectly honest, it's not one that I've paid a whole lot of attention to over the years. Unfortunately I haven't been able to attend in recent years, but obviously we've seen some superb matches in the event over the year, but I feel like it does drop by the wayside slightly compared to the likes of the Grand Prix, the Grand Slam, and obviously the big names like the Matchplay and the World Championship. For me, it's probably just an average tournament, but let us know what you think of the European Championship. Next up is the Grand Slam of darts, probably one of my guilty pleasures. I know there's lots of people that really dislike the group stage format in the opening rounds. Obviously it's very quick format, with it being first to 5, round robin. That does take up a good few days. For 5 or 6 days in Wolverhampton it's taken up with group stage action. So for me, the Grand Slam, I love that quick start format. You never know what's going to happen. You can see 110, 115 averages without really thinking about it, and the game can be over in 6 or 7 minutes if it is a 5-0. Obviously, as you get later into the tournaments, first to 10, first to 16. So for me, it's a top tournament. You get to see a few different names in the lead up to the tournament. Obviously, in the qualification, the qualification has taken a bit of a beating over the last couple of years, with obviously some big names, lots of Daryl Gurney, Mensur Suljovic, both missed out on a Grand Slam a couple of years ago, despite being well inside the top 16 in the world. But for me, the format, I love the group stage format. I love that you get to see a few different players on the stage. For me, it's an elite tournament, and one that I really, really look forward to on the calendar every year. Next up on my list is the Players' Championship Finals in Minehead. Obviously a 3-day event down in Somerset, where you get to use a couple of boards at least. Obviously the Reds Bar is utilised for a second venue, and actually for me is one of the top venues in the PDC. The atmosphere in there is absolutely crackling at all times, and the Skyline Arena is from the outside probably one of the best looking venues in darts. It's absolutely huge, I must say. But for me, the Players' Championship Finals, obviously it's the culmination of the Pro Tour events over the year. The seedings are a little bit strange sometimes. We saw Michael van Gerwen way down the seedings in the event in 2019 with Ian White, I believe, was the number 1 seed, with Gerwyn Price coming in at 2. Correct me if I'm wrong there. In the early stages you don't get to see every game, which for me is a small issue. Obviously it's a different thing at the UK Open, but with so many players involved now, and the tournament being expanded to involve even more players, it does get a little bit lost in the shuffle, much like in the way the European Championships does. So for me, I'd like to put it in the good category, but I'm afraid I'm just going to have to put it into the average category. Now, I'm in danger of being called a hypocrite here, because I've just said I like to see all the games on TV when possible. And the next tournament up is the UK Open. Obviously not just Reds Bar and the Skyline Arena being used in that tournament, but also the backstage boards. I believe it's over 8 or 10 backstage boards, and that room is absolutely rammed at all times. There's so many quality darts players that you can see at one time. It's unbelievable, the UK Open. The fact that you've obviously got the amateur qualifiers, you've got players from the Development Tour and the Challenge Tour joining all of the tour card holders, should I say. For me, the FA Cup of Darts, we know it's called that. It's a bit of a cliche, but that's exactly what it is. You get to see some names you may not have even heard of, even as a darts connoisseur like myself, up against some of the best players in the world, and that's what it's all about, really. We've seen the likes of Rob Cross make his name at the UK Open. There's so many more names that have come through the Riley's qualifiers as well and done exactly the same as Rob Cross, maybe not gone on to the same levels as he has now, but it really is a starting block for amateur darts, and for me it's a top tournament. In a way, it's a shame you only get 3 days of action. Obviously it's a jam-packed weekend in Minehead, but for me it is a really, really good tournament to be involved in, and for me probably one of the best for the fans. You get a choice of obviously 3 venues, all the top names are there, and the format is perfect to suit some shocks and upsets in the early rounds. So for me, it slips into the elite category alongside the Grand Slam of Darts. Next up is one that I'm sure we won't have too many differing opinions on, and that's obviously the William Hill World Darts Championship. 3 weeks of action at the Alexandra Palace, the best players in the world, plenty of players you may not have seen before on the big stage, the big names, long set format as well. You've got to say the World Championship is probably the best tournament on the calendar. There's so much darts over the Christmas period. The crowds are absolutely magnificent, maybe a little bit too magnificent at times, I must say, but the World Championship, it's the biggest on the venue, on the calendar. Obviously the prize fund is the best it can be. The World Championship is quite obviously god tier. Now here's an interesting one. The World Cup of Darts is one that divides opinion, much like the Grand Slam of Darts in the Premier League. No ranking points involved. Obviously it's a pairs format that could be expanded. For me, I'd like to see more players involved on some of the nations, but at the moment you get singles play. Obviously the first round is just pairs play. As you move forward, there's the chance of both pairs playing. If it goes to 1-1, you go to a pairs decider. I'd like to see more team and pairs play in the PDC, and that incorporates into the World Cup of Darts. You see some nations that you may not even know have got professional darts players, but we've seen over the years some unbelievable performances. The adrenaline and the players' passion on the stage is at an all-time high at the World Cup of Darts, and for me it is quite simply a very, very good tournament. Maybe not elite at this stage, but if there was more incorporation of teams and possibly even female players into the event, then it could definitely become an elite tournament in years to come. But for me, just about slipping into the good tier. Next up is the World Grand Prix, a tournament that has a little bit of spice, maybe needs spicing up a little bit more in the coming years. Obviously the double in, double out format is something that's been used in Dublin for many years now, and it creates a bit of a different vibe inside the arena. Obviously the averages aren't quite as high, but if you know you can't hit the double at the start of the leg, it just creates so much more drama, where you've got a player really chasing, especially if somebody misses their first three and then goes 180. You just never know how a player's going to get into a leg, get out of leg. It's such a strange tournament to be involved in. Obviously the biggest names are the big hitters there. You see your likes of your Van Gerwens, your Wrights, obviously your Taylors over the year have dominated in that sort of event, but you do see names come from the blue, likes of Daryl Gurney, obviously the win for Robert Thornton all those years back. It's a tournament that's really sprung some surprises over the years, and for me, the fact it's just evenings it makes it even more special. The City West, although it's out in the sticks and very hard to get to as somebody involved in the media, it's an excellent venue, and the crowd are always very good, even on the likes of the Tuesday and the Wednesday evenings when maybe they've got work to get back to in the morning. So for me, the Grand Slam is definitely a good tournament. And the final name on my list is the World Series of Darts Final. Now for me, this is probably the least important of the TV tournament on the PDC calendar, at least. You see the World Series events, obviously there's no ranking points involved there. You've got the triple header in Australasia, in Australia and New Zealand. Over the years we've had the likes of the Shanghai Darts Masters, the Japan Darts Masters, the Dubai Duty-Free Darts Masters, and of course we're back in New York, well not this year unfortunately, with the US Darts Masters in the last couple of years. So for me, the World Series, there's no ranking points involved. It's very much like an exhibition of darts, especially in the lead-up tournaments in the likes of Australia and in Asia as well, of course. And the qualification for the World Series finals, for me, it seems like a bit of a lucky draw. We saw last year in Holland lots of the names were Dutch players, so I don't really understand what the qualification's about. If that was made more clear, I'm sure it would rank slightly higher on my list. But for me, it's a tournament that doesn't really offer too much that the other tournaments don't, and that's why I'm afraid I'm going to have to put it into the rubbish category. But let me know what you think of that listing. So there you have it, all 11 PDC TV tournaments ranked from God tier all the way down to rubbish. We've seen the likes of the World Matchplay and the World Championship go right up there, in my estimations at least, and the World Series not so good in my estimation. It's a little bit questionable as to what that offers compared to some of the other tournaments. You have to let me know down below what you think of the tournament. Maybe you think the Grand Slam's the best tournament on the calendar, maybe you think the World Series should be much higher up. Let me know down below. I'm here to hear all your comments and all your views. So don't forget to hit that subscribe button, of course like the video as well. Be interested to see all the comments coming through, and we'll see you soon on Tungsten Tales.